The lighthouse keeper's secret. The lighthouse stood like a sentinel against the churning sea, its beam cutting through the dense fog that had settled over Black Harbor. Detective Miranda Cole pulled her coat tighter as she made her way up the winding path, the salt-laden wind whipping her face. 3 people had vanished from this lighthouse in the past month, and as the lead investigator, she was determined to uncover the truth. The door creaked open before she could knock, revealing Walter Hayes, the current keeper, a gaunt man with eyes that seemed to hold the same haunted quality as the lighthouse itself. "Detective," he nodded, stepping aside. "I've been expecting you." The interior smelled of brine and something else, something metallic that reminded Miranda of blood. She'd been a homicide detective for 15 years, that smell never left you. "Mr. Hayes, I understand you were the last person to see Thomas Blackwood before his disappearance." Walter's fingers twitched against his thigh. "I was. We had our usual shift change at dawn." He seemed distracted. "And the others? Sarah Jenkins and Marcus Turner?" "Similar circumstances. They came for their shifts and simply never left." Walter's voice cracked. "This lighthouse has stood for 200 years, detective. It's seen things." Miranda raised an eyebrow. "Things?" Walter turned away, moving toward the spiral staircase that led up to the lantern room. "Perhaps it's easier if I show you." As they ascended, Walter explained the history of the lighthouse, built in 1823, site of numerous shipwrecks, and whispered to be cursed after the original keeper went mad and threw himself from the top. The lantern room was smaller than Miranda expected, dominated by the massive Fresnel lens that projected the light out to sea. Walter ran his hand lovingly over the glass. "Beautiful, isn't it? But up here, alone night after night, watching the waves crash against the rocks, it does things to your mind." Miranda moved to the window, gazing down at the jagged rocks below. "Did the others mention hearing or seeing anything unusual before they disappeared?" Walter's reflection in the glass showed a fleeting smile. "Thomas said he heard singing, a woman's voice coming from the water. Sarah claimed she saw lights beneath the surface, moving against the current. And Marcus, well, Marcus found the journal." "Journal?" Walter crossed to a small desk and pulled out a weathered leather-bound book. "The original keeper's log. Most of it is standard entries, but the final pages." He handed it to her. The last entries descended into madness, frantic scribblings about creatures rising from the depths, about bargains made in blood, about the lighthouse being not a warning to ships but a beacon for something else entirely. "This is insanity." "Perhaps. But 3 people are gone, detective. And the tide is coming in." The wind howled louder outside, and the light pulsed with a rhythm that suddenly seemed less mechanical and more alive. "Show me where they were last seen," Miranda demanded, closing the journal. Walter led her down to the keeper's quarters, a sparse room with a narrow bed, a bookshelf, and a small kitchenette. "Thomas was last seen here, making tea. Sarah was writing letters at that desk. Marcus was reading in that chair." Miranda surveyed the room, noting nothing obviously suspicious. "And you have keys to all areas of the lighthouse?" "Of course. As head keeper, I." A low, mournful sound cut through the air, not the foghorn, but something deeper, more organic. Walter froze. "What was that?" Miranda asked. "The tide," Walter whispered. "It brings them closer." Before Miranda could question him further, the lights flickered and died. In the sudden darkness, she reached for her flashlight, the beam weak against the enveloping black. "Mr. Hayes," she called out, but received no answer. Moving cautiously toward where he'd been standing, she found the space empty. A cold draft brushed past her, carrying that same metallic scent, stronger now. Her training kicking in, Miranda drew her service weapon and began a methodical search of the room. The flashlight beam landed on a section of wall that seemed off. Pressing against it revealed a hidden door, swinging open to reveal a narrow staircase descending below the lighthouse. The steps were slick with moisture, the walls glistening as if sweating. The sound grew louder as she descended, not a single voice now, but many, a chorus that seemed to pulse in time with the distant lighthouse beam. At the bottom, Miranda found herself in a chamber carved from the rock beneath the lighthouse. The walls were covered in bizarre carvings, symbols that hurt her eyes to look at directly. In the center stood Walter, hands raised above a pool of churning seawater that shouldn't have been possible this far above sea level. "Mr. Hayes," she called, weapon trained on him. "Step away from there." He turned, his face transformed by an ecstatic smile. "You don't understand what an honor this is, Detective. They've chosen us, this lighthouse, as their gateway. Where are the missing people, Walter?" His smile widened. "Given to the depths. A sacrifice for each lunar cycle." He gestured to 3 alcoves Miranda hadn't noticed, each containing personal effects: Thomas's glasses, Sarah's scarf, Marcus's watch. "You killed them." Walter shook his head. "I prepared them. But they went willingly in the end, just as you will." The water in the pool began to roil more violently, something massive moving beneath the surface. "The old ones ruled this earth long before humans," Walter continued, voice rising with fervor. "They were banished to the deep, but they're returning now. I am their herald." Miranda steadied her aim. "Step away from the pool, Walter. Now." Instead, he plunged his hands into the water. "Too late, Detective. The gateway is open." A tentacle, iridescent and impossibly large, rose from the pool, wrapping around Walter's arm. He showed no fear, even as it pulled him closer to the water. "They promised me immortality," he gasped, now waist-deep in the pool. "To see wonders no human was meant to witness." Miranda fired, the shots echoing in the chamber. The bullets struck Walter, but he didn't fall. Instead, his skin began to ripple and change, features melting away as more tentacles emerged from the pool. Backing away, Miranda realized with horror that the chamber's only exit had disappeared, the staircase now a smooth rock wall. The water level was rising rapidly, and with it came more undulating forms. In desperation, she grabbed one of the old lanterns hanging on the wall and smashed it against the stone. The oil inside ignited, spreading flames across the strange symbols carved into the walls. An inhuman screech filled the chamber as the fire spread, the water receding as if in pain. Miranda spotted a crack forming in one wall and threw herself against it repeatedly until it gave way, revealing the original staircase. She scrambled upward as the lighthouse began to shudder around her, reaching the main level just as the structure started to collapse. Outside, the storm had intensified to impossible levels, waves crashing over the very top of the cliff. Miranda ran, not looking back until she had reached her car at the end of the path. From there, she watched as the lighthouse, which had stood for 2 centuries, crumbled into the raging sea. 3 days later, search and rescue teams found no trace of Walter Hayes or the missing lighthouse keepers. The official report cited structural failure due to coastal erosion as the cause of the lighthouse's destruction. But Miranda knew what she had seen. And on still nights, when the fog rolls in from the sea, she swears she can hear distant voices singing, and sometimes, just on the horizon where the lighthouse once stood, a light still pulses in the darkness, beckoning. She keeps the journal locked in her desk drawer, unable to destroy it but unwilling to read further. Some secrets, she has learned, are meant to stay buried in the depths, and some lights are not meant to guide you home, but to lure you into darkness.